Ondas de Biodanza.
Ondas de Biodanza.
Onde di Biodanza.
Onde de Biodanza.
Waves of Biodanza.
Biodanza Wellen.
Hello there, this is Lenny Lencina, and we welcome you to a new episode of Waves of Biodanza, a series of podcasts coordinated by the Communication Commission of the IBFED, the World Federation of Biodanza, Rolando Toro System Associations. This Biodanza Federation embodies 20 national and international associations. And these associations embody more than 200 Biodanza schools all around the world. Today, Marcus Stueck is with us. Hello, Marcus.
Hello, Lenny. Nice to see you. Very nice. I'm happy to see you.
I'm so glad to have you here with us in these Waves of Biodanza. Marcus is a Biodanza facilitator. He's a didacta teacher. Marcus is a school director, but also, and this is the most important thing, and this is the reason why Marcus is with us today, Marcus is a Biodanza scientific researcher. And this is the main reason why Marcus is with us today, because today we want to understand who this man is, what Marcus is doing, and the most important thing, why he is doing what he's doing. As you can hear, this interview will take place in English. So if you're not good at English language, what you can do is go to YouTube channel. In YouTube, you can visit our IBFED channels, Biodanza Reels, and select the subtitle option. Then you will read your automatic transcription of this interview in your own language, okay? Voy a decir esto en español para los que no están entendiendo el inglés. Esta entrevista será en inglés. Como si nos sigues sabrás que estas entrevistas, estos episodios de Ondas de Biodanza, se queda todo grabado en nuestro canal de YouTube, que es el canal de IBFED Biodanza Reels, y ahí cuando visitas y seleccionas este episodio, podrás ponerle los subtítulos en el idioma que necesites, la transcripción automática que tiene YouTube. So, Marcus, back to business. Tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, what do you come from? Tell us, what do you do?
Okay. Well, I mean, thank you, Lenny. Thank you for the invitation first and for this opportunity to speak, because then people can know what we are doing, as you say in your introduction. Well, I'm coming from East Germany. East Germany is the former part of the Eastern Bloc, and I was living there when I was 24 years old. The war came down, so I got a completely different socialization. And I was, until I was 18, I was a high-performance sportsman in East Germany. East German champion in handball. This was my world. And parallel, I always was an artist. I played guitar since I'm 4 years old and learned with my father, yes, and my twin brother. And well, and then I had a big injury in my shoulder. As a handballer, it's not so good. And I had to get a new orientation, so I became a mountain climber. I studied psychology in London and also in the University of Leipzig, which is the first experimental institute in the world in 1879 with Wilhelm Wundt. Lenny, I know that you are interested in philosophy. I'm sure you know Wilhelm Wundt. And there in this institute, I worked for 20 years. Became an associate professor, later also a professor at another university in Germany. And I did 2 PhDs in this institute. One about children yoga, and the other about Biodanza in schools, where we investigated how teachers in schools can benefit from Biodanza. And this was a very serious research because we had control groups, which were always yoga. And we were going in schools. We didn't work with students. This is normal in universities that you work with students and then you make your research. No, we went in schools over 2 or 3 years. And and this book is also published. And Rolando knew about this, also about the critic reflection, which was in this book, because the commission of the second PhD demanded a critic reflection on Biodanza. So, and this shaped my way as a scientist. This shaped my way as a scientist, and science is an art. And I bring my skill into Biodanza to, as you said in the beginning, to create this scientific base of Biodanza, which is very important, as you say.
Okay, so how did you find Biodanza? When you were a lecturer already, when you were a teacher there? Did you how tell us about when the first time you came across Biodanza?
No, I mean, when I became a mountain climber,
Yes.
after the war came down, we were climbing all the mountains in the world, in Nepal, Tibet, and also in South America. This was our first high mountain, and we always did research. Like we brought machines up to 7,000 meters and measured stress reactions and sleep and so on. And in this travel, I knew or I met a Biodanza teacher from Argentina. And so in this way, I knew Biodanza and also Rolando Toro, because we went to his house in Chile. And he opened the door and he said to us, "Mijos, how can I help you?" He said, yes. And I didn't know him. I didn't know anything, but I had 2 or 3 years experience in investigating children yoga. And we had physiological measurements, and we had also psychological measurements. And we proposed him to do a study about Biodanza, so which became later the first empiric study in the Biodanza world, experimental and control group study. And later we extended it in the University of Leipzig in a PhD and in PhD project and so on. And so this is how I knew Rolando Toro and how I knew Biodanza, and then I trained in the school in Berlin with Guillermo Morales. And well, then we opened the first school in Leipzig and in the Baltic states, in Latvia. And in the Latvia, for instance, the science gave us permission to go into the society. We would have no chance to open a school in an Eastern European country without a scientific base, because we opened it in university in Latvia, for instance. So this is one example how science can help to open doors. Yes.
Okay, I understand. What a beautiful anecdote you tell us about this, the way you met Rolando Toro.
Yes. Yes, Rolando always said, "Mi hijos," or "Mi hijo, how can I help you?" He always starts his sentences like this. Yes. Yeah.
So when Rolando Toro was alive, did he know about what you were doing, all your scientific researcher?
In the beginning, it was very, very difficult to translate because of the translation. Because I found always there are 2 different worlds which can't communicate. One is the world of science, a scientific project in a really conservative understanding is a world of publication, of studies, of data, and so on. It's a very rational world. And in the beginning, we did studies, we published it, and this was very difficult to translate. But in 2000, over the years, we published books also in other language. For instance, Dance Towards Health was the first book which we studied in 2 or 3 different languages, was also a part in Spanish, and we hand him over this book. So he knew that what we are doing. Also in the first years, we did a lot of conferences in Brazil and Chile and Argentina, where we explained what we are doing. So slowly, we came together and could communicate. And I was really surprised about his knowledge about psychological science, because we used, for instance, a semantic differential, because you need to have measurements or tools. How can you measure what happened in Biodanza? And you cannot take a questionnaire, for instance, during the Biodanza or something like this. So you need to take something more intelligent. And we use so-called semantic differentials, and which are a kind of two adjectives where you have to just make a cross. How do you feel in this moment? So you get a profile when you ask, what is the meaning of life for you, with a bench of 20 adjectives or something. And this is from Hofstetter. Yes, it's a very old measurement in the psychology, a tool in the psychology, and he knew about it. And he asked me which levels in this semantic differential you use. Yes, and I was very surprised about his detailed knowledge. And in 2010, we did a travel to Africa together, and we traveled through Africa in a little car. There were 4 or 5 people where we introduced Biodanza in Tanzania. And in this travel, we were talking a lot. I could translate him all the texts, and with the help of the translator. And also, we went to the Ministry for Gender Politics, and he demonstrated embraces, for instance, and I could show the scientific effects of embraces. So when he left the bus in Dar es Salaam, he said, Mirejo, we have in front of us a lot of projects. And also in this travel, he gave me his research wishes, where we were working in the next years on it. And well, this guided our way in the project. Yes.
How interesting all this, what you're telling us about the beginning of your research, about how Rolando Toro thought about everything you were doing. I'm going to ask you a very simple question, very basic, but we need to understand, first of all, why do you think all this scientific research are so important for Biodanza? What's the point on everything behind? Why are we doing this? Why are you doing this? Why do we need scientific base for Biodanza?
Yes. No, I mean, Lenny, you have read the publications, the last publications, and one of the publications is Explore the Unknown, where we publish different books to explain what is the empirical science. And Rolando Toro was making a very, very important quote. He said, Biodanza is not a magic. Biodanza is a conservative science. Okay, this is what he said. And this is very important, especially after the death of Rolando, because there is nobody anymore who can decide what can we integrate in Biodanza or what can't we integrate, what is suitable to the theoretical model and what not. So this is one important area why we need the science. Yes. For instance, there is a second publication which is called The Limits of Biodanza. Yes, because when I became a young scientist about children yoga, one of my supervisors, he told me, he's a physiologist from the University of Leipzig, he told me the most important thing, Marcus, about a method are the contraindications, not the indications. Why a method is working are what are the limits of the method, where this method cannot reach. So this is one example where we were working on in the last years to answer this question, because after Rolando's death, there are coming a lot of wishes to make extensions, and there were 2 things which was very alarming for us in the subcommission, in the methodological subcommission of the IBFET, was to integrate psychotrope substances and to integrate Biodanza and chakra. Yes, these were 2 questions. Can we integrate or not? And in this moment, there was the point just to investigate these questions. Yes, and we investigate these questions in four aspects. The first aspect is, of course, the original texts of Rolando Toro. For instance, what he say about energy. Yes, so we took an early text, we took a late text of Rolando, and we about the numinous unconscious. Yes. Which is a professorial concept. It's not finished, okay? And as you can read in this publication, The Limits of Biodanza is also in Spanish, yes, in the Bionet research webpage. You can read how is his view on the energy, okay? Is it a biological energy? Is it a metaphysical energy? What is it? So, and we this question is open, yes, but you need the original text of Rolando to answer this question. So by now, the theoretical model and the definition of biodanza is not suitable to cross this line, okay? Biodanza and chakra, for instance, okay? Because chakran has a completely different energy concept. And so this is the first one. The second one are witnesses of the times, like, for instance, Maite Bernadette, Sergio Cruz, you know, all these people who know biodanza, who know Rolando Toro, and knows how he think about this subject, okay? The third thing is a so-called meta theory. And meta theories tell you what is behind the limits, okay? For instance, if you have a biological energy, what is behind this biological energy, okay? And for this, I worked in the last 5 years. It was a very, very hard work because there's nobody anymore to say, yes, this is right or this is wrong. It's not a political decision, okay? It's a scientific decision. As Rolando stated, it's a conservative science. And I worked 5 years on this relative biocentric health theory, which describe, for instance, the concept of energy and in which concept biodanza is working. Okay, so and the last thing is then the empiric science, which can answer the questions. So this is only one aspect why the empiric science is so important. The second aspect is an analysis which we did in the subcommission of Biodanza and Science about the situation about biodanza and empiric science. And we found that there are only few publications, so-called peer review publications, which are publications which went through a scientific community and got a critic reflection based on the data, yes. There are only 21 of these publications, so the visibility of biodanza is very limited in the academic world and also in the health professions. I know that in Spain, you did a huge work about this publication. There are some good studies, okay, but we need more. We need more, and we need to organize it in a structural process that how we can create more publications. So now look the situation. The situation, what we found in this critical analysis is that, for instance, in the didacta educations now, there was no entrance for the empiric science. There were all the aspects of the theory were there were presentations by medical doctors or by people who worked in the universities, but these were all literature based. Okay, for instance, in epigenetic, there is no study in biodanza who proved the efforts of epigenetics, and unfortunately, also in neuroscience, there are no enough studies in biodanza. To tell you the truth, there are only 2 little studies which we have done in University of Leipzig about the nervous system, yes, but not about what's going on in the brain. About the polyvagal theory, it's all literature based, and a method cannot based on literature. It's impossible if we follow the quote of Rolando, biodanza as a conservative science. So this we call pseudoscience. Okay, pseudoscience is, it looks like science, but it's not science. Okay, so that's why we created a model project in the subcommission of Biodanza and Science, the International Biocentric Research Academy, which runs at the moment 6 scientific projects to demonstrate how we should work. Okay, and one thing is clear, that every project has to be finished with a high-level publication. Okay, so we also brought out a publication list with the situation, and the situation is critical because when you have the theoretical model, you need to have evidence for every part of the theoretical model. Okay, for instance, Rolando puts the genetic code in the centrum. He said this is the expression of identity. Okay, so you need to do a study about the genetic code. Okay, which cost a lot of money. I have done this study now 2014 in the mountain. We were working with specialists from Iran. Okay, because I'm a member of the university in Tehran, because we are using all these facilities to do the research, and it costs a lot of money to do the study. And it takes a lot of time to answer the question, which genes are switching on, which genes are switching off before and after Biodanza. Okay, it's not so easy to answer. So we need to put our focus to put evidence as a theoretical model. Otherwise, Biodanza cannot call itself a scientific discipline. Okay, so this is the main topic which we have to work on. And about the biocentric principles, there's no scientific model in this moment. So I hope this year this relative biocentric health theory comes out, and we can introduce a scientific model where you can measure point by point. You know, like you have to answer what are the cosmic principles, what is a biocentric, what are biocentric principles, and how can you operationalize them in the study. Okay, are there the educational biocentric programs? Are they evidence-based? Because when you have evidence-based programs, you can enter institutions, for instance. But for this, again, you need publication. Publication is the main thing. There can be not build a scientific institute within the IBFET. It has to be independent because of the interests of conflict. And the main thing what this institution should produce are publications, because of the credibility of Biodanza, because of the independent reviews of the studies. So there has to be more transparency about the evidence in Biodanza and so on. So I could talk for hours now, but this is what we have to work on, Lenny. Okay.
Yeah. Everything is so interesting what you are saying. This is going to be the first part of this interview, and in a few days later we are going to have a second episode where we will continue listening to Markus Stueck answering questions about all his scientific research. Thank you so much for listening.
Ondas de Biodanza.
Ondas de Biodanza.
Onde di Biodanza.
Ondas de Biodanza.
Waves of Biodanza.
Biodanza Wellen.